All right, everybody, it is April 10th. If you don't know what that means, that is my big sissy sauce's birthday. So today we're going to cut a video. Santos is going to jump in and do some interviews. We're going to hear what my sissy sauce has to say.
I'm Sarah Moon. I am Boog's big sister. The best sister he could ask for.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you're here today. You know, ultimately, I know when Jeff probably asked you, hey, can we shoot a video with you? You didn't really know what to think. I mean, I know you've seen a lot of the videos on YouTube and on Facebook. But now today, you get to be the star of the show. You get to be the person that we interview and that we get to learn more about as a family member of Jeff and as a really, really key member of the support system that Jeff has had his entire life and that the girls have had and now that J.Shaw Heating and Cooling have had. So, Sarah, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and about your household and your family.
I am a massage therapist. I have my own practice. I've been doing that since 2010. 3 kids that are my miracles. Didn't think I was going to have a family, and God blessed me with those 3 babies, 35, 36, and 40.
Oh, wow.
So life is busy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really just enjoy having my own massage practice, and that's pretty much what I do most of my days.
Okay. So entrepreneurs, I mean, it sounds like it kind of runs in the family a little bit. You have your own massage practice, Jeff, starting his own heating and cooling business. Is that something that you saw in your family, whether that be instilled through your parents, or something that you as kids have kind of gone into in your life?
Quite honestly, no. I can recall being a young adult teenager, I really had an interest in traveling with a group called the Continental Singers. And so I think Dad was more courageous than Mom was, but he was always encouraging me anyway to try something new. You don't know until you try. And I think part of that stemmed from back in the 80s when he was laid off from John Deere and had to just make ends meet, which meant driving a school bus or delivering mail. And it wasn't until we transferred here to Missouri where he really took a step of faith in packing up a family, moving to another state, starting on with General Motors, and was there 27 years. And I think it's what gave him the inspiration to encourage us, try it. If you don't try it, you don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know one of the things that when Jeff really sat down all of us, I mean, for a long time, we've been doing family dinners up here on Sunday nights. And one of the things that he talked about, was, okay, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to do this. And, we see it in a lot of our videos that Jeff puts out, whether it be with the girls or with Rowdy. They talk about family. And you hit on it right there. Your dad pushed you guys and said, if you don't try this, you'll never know. What does family mean to you and how that correlates to Jeff?
It's my lifeline. I mean, whether it be my church family or my actually biological family, it's your support system. It's your people. I call it my bubble is what I call it. It's detrimental, I think, to anyone's life. You have to have your people that you can rely on, that you can confide in, that you can trust. It's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. So when Jeff called you, or how did you find out about Jeff starting J.Shaw Heating and Cooling, and what was your initial thoughts?
Go for it. He called me. What do you think, sis? What do you think about this idea? Go for it. You don't know until you try. I was scared to go into business for self because self-doubt is the enemy, and we don't like to fail. I'm sure most people don't like to fail, but you put yourself out there. I think growing up, being in the spotlight, honestly, doing music for years, we're used to being noticed. So you don't want to fail. You don't want to appear as a failure. And so, him being younger, me being 5 years older than him, and having this maternal instinct with him, unfortunately, I've smothered him his whole life. Try it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you don't know until you try. And the worst failure is not trying at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're 100% correct. You miss all of the shots you never take. One of the things that a lot of people, whether they were in the private sector or in the public sector, no one saw COVID coming. I mean, let's just be real there. But for you as a business owner, and now Jeff, who started a business out of COVID, COVID created this. There's a lot of good and bad things that happen with COVID. Specifically with you, I mean, did you see that impacted you and your household, you and your relationship with family members, friends? How did that play out for you?
I'm a hugger and a lover, so the isolation for me was tough. Having a profession that actually puts hands on people every day, it was definitely taking a toll on having contact with others. But who I am as a person and as a believer, like to see God show up in a big way, I think people realize just how important business is, especially small business, because so many small businesses were affected. Some had to shut down because they couldn't maintain, whether it be in the food industry especially, but just impact a small business in general. I think it's so impressive that he has the courage to step out. But yes, it did have impact on relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one of the things, and I'm sure Jeff said the same thing to you, and you've heard him say it. Jeff, when he started all of this, his first thought process was, if I can't have an answer, a yes or no answer, within the first 5 seconds of me thinking or hearing that question, then now's not the time to be making that decision. And ultimately, we heard that. We heard Jeff contemplating. And after hearing that you told him to go for it, and having that family support, across the board, I really feel like Jeff took a leap of faith, like you said, that was really unprecedented. People were shuttering their businesses, closing them for good. And you have Jeff here who decided, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. Is that something that you saw Jeff doing when he was 20 years old, when he was 25? I mean, when did you see, and maybe even as a teenager, did you ever really see Jeff doing HVAC?
Jeff's done it for as long as I can remember, but to be a business owner, I probably wouldn't have suspected that until his 30s.
Okay.
He had to grow up like all of us do, and it's much easier working for someone else, but he has had such great mentors in the industry, and I think being able to work for small business, I think of one gentleman that comes to mind that he spent some time with, and I think it was setting the tone. I think God was planting the seed long before Jeff even recognized it. And, nothing against corporations or corporate America, but there's just something to be said about being able to run your own business and to treat customers the way that you want them to be treated and to be able to work around your own schedule. I think for Jeff, it's a perfect time. I think it is to be entering into your 40s and have that flexibility and freedom and to really be able to set that reputation.
So, you keep bringing up faith, and that's something that, Jeff has sayings around the house. You go into your shop, you have sayings around the house, or around your office, excuse me, of biblical sayings and biblical reminders of where we should be, and not to go off on religion here, but one thing that I feel like from the beginning of the inception of J.Shaw Heating and Cooling, I continue to hear the verse, be still and know. Be still and know that I am God. And to sit here and you said it best, to have that faith. No, trust in the Lord. One of the things that I know isn't always the easiest to talk about and isn't always the easiest to address the elephant in the room, so to speak, is what individuals set forth before us. And that's let's talk about your dad. You know, your dad was a very instrumental figure in all of your all of the siblings' lives, yours, Chris and Jeff. What does that mean to you? Like, where do you think your dad would be right now if, you know, how would he feel about this?
He would be absolutely excited. He was always an encourager. I think being a baby of his own family tree and always having to follow the footsteps of others, I think that was a strong connection with him and Jeff, because Jeff's the baby of our family. And so I think Dad would be so proud of Jeff for stepping out, doing something different. And I think he'd be walking alongside, giving all the advice that he could ever give, because he was the person you'd go to. Dad was the one you'd go to and talk to him about absolutely anything, and he was all ears. So I think he'd be very excited at what Jeff's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about your dad. Now let's talk about your mom. I mean, you know, she's out there liking all of our videos, liking all of our posts, you know, sharing posts all the time on Facebook. Where, you know, how do you see your mom and how she's a reflection, or Jeff is a reflection of what maybe she's instilled in him?
Mom is ornery. She's more reserved. She's the one that would have the reservations to go, okay, are you sure this is what you want to do? And, you know, it's not that it's bad, but she definitely wants you to step back and go, okay, are you sure? You know, let's talk about the positives and the negatives, and let's really just make sure this is what you need to do. But is she supportive? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things that you said there that I really want to unpack. One thing is that you had mentioned was orneriness, Jeff and Betsy. Another thing that you talked about was Betsy being reserved. What do you think led to her being reserved, and do you feel like you see a little bit of that in Jeff, or is that something that you kids have learned from her adversity, and what she's done in her life?
Well, my mom is hearing impaired. She wears double hearing aids. They did not even realize that she was deaf until she was probably preschool aged. They just thought she was ignoring. And so I would say early on in those years, she was probably not treated fairly. She was eventually sent off to the School of the Deaf in Iowa, and for years only used one hearing aid. But once insurance with General Motors kicked in, Mom was able to get double hearing aids. So having a speech impairment, she had a strong circle of deaf friends in Iowa, but the transition here in 1986 to Missouri, I think, took a toll on her. She was lacking those relationships she was so calm and confident and, I think, invested in. Yeah. So moving to Missouri herself, having to start all over and making new friendships here, really led to her second-guessing decisions and such, because she didn't have her circle. And so I think with Mom's disability, she has learned to just overcome so many obstacles and standing up for herself, standing up for her children, standing up for her loved ones. She's fierce.
Yeah.
She's fierce.
Let's walk it back a little bit. We talked about orneriness. And anyone that knows Jeff knows that he definitely has a joking side to him. What was Jeff like growing up? I mean, everyone sees the Jeff of today. Everyone sees the Jeff of 2022 or 2021 or pre-COVID Jeff. But let's talk about what he was like before he was J.Shaw.
Climb the rafters, hang from the ceiling. Jeff was ornery. Before ADHD was even a diagnosis, that boy would not sleep. Like, he was horrible about nap time. And so by the time he hit toddler years, wherever Jeff dropped, you just let him stay. Because, like, it could be hanging one leg off a couch, which, like, Jeff is sleeping, let him be. Because he was just nonstop. The kid's energy was unreal. And I would catch him in my bedroom because I'm the only girl. He'd be in there in all my play makeup my grandma Jane gave me, looking like an absolute clown with, like, the blush and the lipstick all over his face. He was so stinking lovable, though.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, you know, Jeff obviously has a fun side, and we've seen the business side now that we've taken, you know, now that we've broadcasting it to the world with our social media post. One thing that you mentioned very early on in this interview was music. Music. Again, all over your shop, all over this house. All over, I mean, all of the kids in the family seem to have their own real big feel for music. how did that play into your life? Your life, your brother's life, your family, your dad, all of that. Tell us more about that.
It's our backbone. It's just in our blood. Dad was a banjo picking fool. And I remember growing up in Iowa, and again, we moved here when I was 10. Dad was so well versed in music. He'd have everything from Neil Sedaka to Black Sabbath in his record collection. Chris Christopherson, Merle Haggard, you name it. Dad loved the Bill Gaither vocal band. I mean, like, Dad had such a wide variety of taste in music, but it was always going. I always remember the record player going, because TV wasn't really much of a thing. I mean, like, I remember when cable came out and we didn't even get to have it because we couldn't afford to. So music was what we did. And Mom could feel the bass. So she'd get on music, you know, and 70s music is probably the best genre of music ever because there's such a good beat to it. So Mom and Dad would just really get going in the music. Dancing around is what I can remember them doing in the living room. Once we moved to Missouri, Dad had a lot of layoff with General Motors, and at one layoff he, I think, was off 18 months and built himself a banjo, but really took an interest in Southern bluegrass, gospel, and we found a group in Gower called the Gower Good Timers, which is where Jeff's introduction of really learning how to play an instrument began, to where we really began our own little trio. And that's the one thing I miss most, is spending the time with music, because Sunday afternoons Dad wouldn't work and we'd just pull the instruments out. Dad would pull out a music book and we'd just sit around and jam.
Wow. What is one song that you would say, thinking about Jeff, that if you could associate with Jeff, what would that be?
I don't know. The one song I do, like, always sing about anytime would be Blessed Assurance, because that was a go-to song with Dad and Jeff. Whether we were singing at a church or at the Good Timers, we'd always end up singing Blessed Assurance. But Jeff was so into country, so really trying to pick one...
Can't do it?
No.
Another thing that often, a lot of times, we don't hear about from a business owner's perspective is what it's like. Maybe it's not normal hours. You know, I mean, you have kids, Jeff has kids. What is that like for you both as business owners to, you know, catch up as siblings? Because you have the business, you have the kids that you're providing for. Where do you feel like that, where your businesses maybe could blend, or where you guys could work together, maybe not on the business side of things, but to interact more, just because life gets busy.
Mm-hmm. We try to call each other. We do. I think we've done better with the flexible schedules, that he'll call me, I call him. He'll harass me that I never answer my phone. But, you know, if I'm in the middle of a massage,
right,
they might not want to talk to you.
Yep.
So we do, I think, a better job of reaching out probably during work hours.
Yeah.
And not, you know, we don't have to spend an hour on the phone every time we talk, but typically we can't get off in 5 minutes either. So he's my Jeppy.
That's a common theme. I'll call Jeff and I say, Jeff, I need 5 minutes. And then it's normally me taking up 20 minutes. So.
Because he's a bug and he's just adorable.
Yes. And then Jeff, ADHD.
Squirrel!
Right. Talking about this or talking about that. So yeah, definitely. Awesome. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, click subscribe. Follow us on Facebook. And we'll catch you on the next one.